Hello, hello, welcome back to the Spirit of Watercolor with Linda. So glad you're back joining me and that we're continuing our journey with these beautiful watercolor pigments together and growing. So I've been painting and I realized I should put this into a video for you because, and you can try this with me, partly because as we paint we learn more about the watercolors and the colors. As you know, I'll pick a color or two and we'll work with that and see what they do and create a painting. And what I've found is in my my Roses of Michigan book, which I've used a lot for paintings, I found a beautiful rose, and I was also thinking about the color lavender. You know, you can buy a tube of lavender, but who wants to do that, right? When we have all these gorgeous paints. I have so many watercolors by Daniel Smith that I should be able to create it myself. So I did look it up, and here's this aglaneria. It's a rose aglaneria, it's called, and it's lavender with some pink blended, you know, kind of in there, and it's just so beautiful. I hope you can see that. And then I'll take a picture of it as well. And then I tried it, you know, I blended some colors together, and we'll do this together. I have to, I guess, finish my little painting and then we'll paint it together. So you can see how much that color is kind of matching that, right? So I'll tell you what I did and how to do this. And it's just a small pad, 9 by 12, really nice paper. And we'll do this at the table. So please join me and please like and subscribe. Okay, so I finished this painting and I redrew it so you can see here. I'll move it up a little so you can see that. And you know, I drew in the petals, and I didn't put a lot of information in the middle. I can just do that with my small brushes. And then we had the leaves, and we mixed some beautiful colors, which I'll show you next. Okay, so I'm taking my palette and I'm mixing. I did use Carbazzo Violet before, which is my Daniel Smith purple. This time I'm trying Winsor Violet. I think they're very similar, so that you have a choice if you don't have Daniel Smith paints. A lot of people have Winsor Newton. And then this is a Quin Rose. I think you can get that color also. Quinacridone Rose. It's probably Opera Pink is an option too. I just like Quin Rose. It's a more permanent pink. I tried a red, like an alizarin, and it's just too red. So if you want to get these lavender soft colors, I think we have to stick with the softer colors. You could use a blue and mix your own purple or lavender too. I just love these violet colors already mixed. So first I use my flat brush and just wet the petals. I started one at a time, and then I decided to, you know, do all of the petals. But when I started, my brush still had too much of the Quinacridone Rose on it, so I had to come back after I cleaned my brush and get the violet going. And this first petal, it looked really strong, so I realized my paint was a little too highly concentrated there. And so, you know, I wet the next petal and started to let it flow out and over to the other petal. And then, you know, I thought, well, let's just keep going, and we'll wet the other petals and we'll just go all the way around. And actually, that's a good way to do it. We can come in later after it dries and do some shadows and so on and so on. Although the paper looks sort of textured, the paint looks textured when I'm starting, after it flows and soaks into the paper, it smooths out, just so you know. And yeah, and I like the variation, which is actually the flower. It varies from a pinker lavender to a more purple lavender, so I just let that kind of flow on its own. And here I'm using my rigger brush, and I'm putting in the little yellow, I don't know what they're called. Forgive me, I'll look it up and we'll find out what those little, are they stamen or in the roses? And just placing them in there. And then I'll let those dry and I will move on over to other parts of the painting. I'm going to go to the leaves and use a flat brush, a small flat brush, 1/2 inch, and just come in and wet the leaves, and I'll work, from one side to the other, trying to remember. We need to remember, put some on one side, let it set up and dry, go to the other side and work there. Sometimes I forget, and you paint while things are still wet, so you kind of want to let things dry before you go back in and maybe do some work over top, glazing over top. That's what it's called, layering more paint colors later, more concentration. I vary the concentration here too, by the way. I just like to use that gorgeous Mayan Blue, and then I add in some of the sap green and some of the deep sap green. Those two are beautiful greens in my palette, and I always have them there. And it's easy to get carried away, and I think I did start to forget, to let things dry like I just mentioned, but, it's just letting these colors flow, and, you can kind of let the leaves kind of define themselves. If you go over the lines where you didn't want to, you can just erase pencil lines. It works fine with the Magic Rub eraser, which is my favorite kind of eraser that I always use. And so here we're just continuing with the leaves, adding more value, stronger color flowing, and creating some shadows there, and just letting the watercolors flow as they do so beautifully. Sometimes you have to just let them go and let them flow, and they create for you. It's just beautiful how watercolors work that way. And then I'm going up to the top, and we're creating those, I don't know if they were stems or parts of the rose in the background, and I'm put in the lines because I had forgotten to, and then I just brought my deep sap green in, and then kind of just took a clear brush and made them a little bit wider and let the color flow, so it's kind of lighter on the left side and darker on the right. So therefore you see the rounded shapes of those little like stems back there. And then we go back into the center. Things have dried, and I realize I can't really see the little yellow stamens or pistils or whatever they are, and they're needing to add. I need to add more color there, and then we just keep going, and we're adding to make that a little stronger. Sometimes you just have to glaze over things, and again I'm coming in to the petals and creating some shadows there, so that you can define one petal from the other, and taking the cooler carbazole color, the violet, and bringing that into those, around those edges, onto, again, wet, I've wet it with clear water again, and then there we put those purples in, and sort of the petals begin to separate, and you see each one. Back into the leaves again, and back and forth. You let things dry, go back in. It's just kind of how you do watercolor. So just learning that makes a huge difference. So I keep repeating that, but it's very important. You can add lines for veins in the leaves. I just didn't choose to, and add details more and more if you wish with the small brush. So here you see the finished painting we did together, and I think it looks pretty similar but different. Here's the original one I did. Either one. I hope you enjoyed painting this and learning more about watercolor, how to mix colors, and also learning some of the techniques and how to make a successful and fresh watercolor. And I'm so glad you joined me again, and I hope that you enjoyed doing this with me. And keep coming back to the Spirit of Watercolor, where we keep learning and growing on our spiritual journey together. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me. Bye.